he stopped me practically from the first words that came out of my mouth. Because I started explaining the verse from the first sentence of the verse, the first line of the verse. What's the first line of the verse? Shunya. And the second line? Right. So he said, this is not how you explain this verse. This is the tatastha lakshan of Uttama Bhakti. This is not the swarup lakshan, the characteristic, the main characteristic of bhakti. You must begin, when you explain this verse, by explaining the main characteristic of bhakti. And what is that? Third line. Third line. You can say the third line. Thank you. Anukulyena Krishnanushilanam. That is the swarup lakshan of Uttama Bhakti. What does that mean? Anukulyena Krishna Anushilanam. Okay? This is why when you memorize a verse, you learn the meaning of each and every word, especially this verse. Because this verse, if even a syllable is taken out of this verse, it changes the meaning. For example, and I'm telling this simply because I've read this a number of times, from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Bindu, where it's all broken down. A number of pages are given there. Each and every word. Here's an example. The first line. Anya Bilashita Shunyam. What does Anya mean? It means other. Abhilasa. Anya Bilas. What does Abhilas mean? Desires. What does Ita mean? Very important. I'm not going to tell yet. Anya Bilashita Shunyam. What does Shunyam mean? Devoid of. Shunya also means zero. Shunyavadis are those persons like Buddhists who have the belief that the ultimate goal is nothingness, void, shunya. So in Prabhupada's pranam mantra, nirvishesha shunyavadi paschatya desakare. So here, that first line is basically saying, devoid of any other desires. Anya adilas, any other desires. But there is a syllable attached, and it's very ingenious what Rupa Goswami did by composing that line with the addition of ita, I-T-A. And it comes from two different words, in and ta. And because my memory is not so good, I'll have to read that to you, exactly how it's explained there. But the reason why it's given like that, here's a pure devotee who is an Uttama Bhakta, right? I'm giving you an example. A pure devotee who is an Uttama Bhakta, okay? He does nothing but Uttama Bhakti 24 hours, okay? And according to the definition, this Tatastha Lakshan, this first line, it says, devoid of any other desire, is by nature completely devoid of any other desires, except what? Anukulyena Krishna Anushilanam. Okay? But by the addition of this word ita, it changes the meaning. I'm going to explain that. Jai Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Shri Radha Govinda Jiyo Ki Jai. In every single circumstance, a pure Uttama Bhakta is always absolutely devoid of any other desires. He has no personal desire to be fulfilled. But when Rupa Goswami added ita, it gives an exception to this. What is the exception?
When one is in an emergency threatened by death.
Yes, if one is in a life-threatening situation, like that suddenly comes, then that pure devotee, who ordinarily will never ask Krishna for anything, he says, "Oh my Lord, please protect me." That's why ita is there. Because that condition of emergency does not disturb his perfect Uttama Bhakti. You understand this point now? You understand? By adding that ita, it gives this exception. Right? So, that is allowed. Because why? Because it's the natural, instinctive response. Oh, Krishna, save me. You see? So, that's the first line. But this is the Tatashta Lakshan. This is the marginal characteristic of actual Uttama Bhakti. What about the second line? Jnana karmadi anavritam. Say that. Jnana karmadi anavritam. What does that mean? See, neither of you stated it correctly.
Yeah.
Because you didn't use the word not covered by. Understand? He's not saying devoid of gyan, devoid of karma, devoid of yoga and all of no. No. He says jnana karmadi. Karmadi means jnana, karma, yoga, and so forth. Karmadi anavritam. That means uncovered, not covered. You cannot be devoid of karma in the physical body. There has to be some karma. You cannot be devoid of gyan in the physical body. It's not possible. But to a certain extent, those are utilized by the Uttama Bhakti, by the Uttama Bhakta, to the degree to which they do not cover bhakti. We have to understand this point. Bhakti can be covered. That's why he used this term anavritam. Not devoid of, shunyam, but anavritam, uncovered by. Perfect definition, Rupa Goswami. This is still the marginal characteristic, not the Swarup Lakshan. Now we come to the actual line which says, Anukulyena Krishna Anushilanam. These words are very filled with meaning, especially Anushilanam. If you don't know the meaning of Shilanam and Anushilanam, you cannot define what is Uttama Bhakti. You have to know that. And it says there, Anukulyena. What does Anukulyena mean? Nobody knows the word Anukul?
Favorable?
Yes. Favorable. Anukul. Everyone say, Anukul. Anukulyena. Krishna Anushilanam.
Krishna Anushilanam.
Actually, it's Krishna Anushilanam, but I'm separating. Krishna Anushilanam.
Krishna.
You see? So, here it is telling favor of Gurudev, including myself, of saying it is not favorable for happiness or the satisfaction of Krishna. Right? For the happiness or the satisfaction of Krishna. And Gurudev corrected, no, that is not the meaning. That is not the Swarup Lakshana, that Krishna will always be happy by your devotional service. And therefore, how do we understand that? You did hit upon that, KK, by mentioning two examples. Two examples that prove that Uttama Bhakti is not necessarily favorable for Krishna's happiness. Because Krishna may become unhappy by what you do. Because if you're an Uttama Bhakta and a Premi Bhakta, what to speak of Uttama Bhakti, right? Your activities may not necessarily directly make Krishna happy or satisfy him. What's the example?
Mother Yashoda.
Yes. KK, you can tell?
When Krishna wanted to continue drinking milk from Mother Yashoda and she saw that the milk pot was boiling over because it wanted to serve Krishna. And so she put Krishna down to facilitate the service of the milk, and Krishna became angry.
That's right. Krishna was not made happy by that. Huh? He became angry. Yes. But does that mean that Mother Yashoda was not doing Uttama Bhakti by putting Krishna down and making him unhappy? Think about it. Was she doing or not Uttama Bhakti, pure Bhakti, Prem Bhakti?
Pure.
Sure.
Oh, explain then. How was it?
She's doing it for the benefit of Krishna.
What was she doing?
She put him down
Yeah.
and went to take care of the milk, which is going to be used for Krishna's service.
Oh, how? How will it be used?
To make rubbery,
Uh-huh.
sweet rice, and whatever else.
That's right. For who? Krishna. There is nothing. Try to understand this point. It's not like us, conditioned souls. We do so many things throughout our 24 hours a day, we could probably write on an unlimited sheet of paper. How many things we do not for Krishna's benefit? Right? Yes. But Mother Yashoda, there is not one single moment that she's not acting for Krishna's benefit. You see? So that's why it's called Anukulyena Krishna Anushilanam. And there's a term called, I forget the Sanskrit, overextension and underextension of a definition of something, right? So the definition of Uttama Bhakti can be either overextended or underextended. Now we come to the other example. What's the other example? Chanur and Mushtika. You know who they were?
Restless.
Huh? Who was Chanur and Mushtika? Oh, you gotta brush up on your Krishna Lila. Everyone has to read the Krishna book again and again. So Chanur and Mushtika were the two wrestlers that were placed there in the wrestling arena by Kamsa to kill Krishna. Yes, no, they were, and Balaram. So when Krishna and Balaram all the time, right? That's why we see the perverted reflection of that in the material world. We see it out here on the lawn every single day, right? And it's like that's like perfect, unbroken flow when the children want to wrestle. At any single moment, they can start wrestling and fighting, isn't it? Yeah. One time Srila Prabhupada, he was talking with this Indian man, and the Indian man was suggesting, oh, Swamiji, that we have to come together, all the religions, and make peace, and stop all wars, and all of this, all fighting. We have to stop this. Prabhupada said, that's never possible. Whoa. In the jiva. It will never be removed. And then he said, take for example, two young boys. If you put them together, within no time, they'll be fighting. Prabhupada gave a perfect praman, evidence of that. Nobody can deny that. Doesn't matter what country of the world, what language they speak, anything. You put two boys together, they'll start fighting. Because it's there in the jiva. Why? Because the jiva is meant for tasting ras and giving prem to Krishna, in which he's tasting ras from the jiva, right? And there are 12 rasas, 5 primary, 7 secondary rasas. And one of those 7 secondary rasas is called what? What's the Sanskrit? Vira. Vira rasa. Vira rasa. That's why Krishna also kills the demons. He's also tasting Vira ras. That's why Jai Vijay came down into this world from Vaikuntha, where they were premi bhaktas and Vaikuntha prem, but they noticed that our Lord, he has a desire that's not being fulfilled. He wants to fight. They could detect that because they're perfect servants. Our master, he wants to fight. We want to also satisfy his desire to fight. Then it can be a real fight. Otherwise it would be like a pretend fight. Incident happened that the 4 Kumars came, they blocked the 4 Kumars, then the 4 Kumars cursed them, and then Lord Narayan and Lakshmi Devi came and they cursed them to come to the material world. And then they became 3 births of demons. The most powerful demons that have ever taken birth in the material universe. No one is as powerful as Hiranyakashipu, not even Ravana. He's the second one. Ravana was not even as powerful as Hiranyakashipu. There is no demon ever that is as powerful as Hiranyakashipu. So they took birth as very powerful demons, and the Lord performed such beautiful pastimes to liberate all the conditioned souls by hearing these pastimes, by hearing these instructions. The Lord of the conditioned to kill him. Their motivation was to kill him, not to give him happiness. Good-hearted people in the stadium, they were upset because, well, what is this? This is not an equal match. These gigantic wrestlers, and then these are soft young teenage boys. This is unfair. But then, Chandra and Mushtika said also to them, no. is the opposite. Okay, so good. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu Sri Rupa Goswami has defined Uttama Bhakti. How can such Uttama Bhakti manifest in persons of the verse first? How can Sri Mukunda ever be manifested to a person whose heart is invaded by lamentation, anger, and other agitations? What is this verse telling us?
It depends on what level you approach it from, but the idea is that if we're identifying with the body and the urges of the body, then Krishna can't manifest to our Atma.
No, it's mostly the symptoms of that is being referred to here. What are the symptoms? Shoka marsh adibir bhavayar. Shoka means lamentation and anger. We should understand this, that if our hearts are invaded by these kind of agitations, it is impossible that Mukunda can manifest in that person's heart. That's why we're not pure devotees. Because our heart is not devoid of all that yet. It's good. Because we're trying. But as long as it is there, this is from Padma Purana, Mukunda can never be manifested to a person whose heart is invaded by lamentation, anger, and other agitations. So the purport of this statement is that when contaminations such as lust, anger, and greed arise within the mind, then the 6 overwhelming passions mentioned in this original verse, Vachovegam Manasa Krodavegam, they cause the mind to become thoroughly engrossed in fleeting objects of sensual gratification. The cultivation of unalloyed bhakti is never possible in such a contaminated heart. Can that person do bhakti abhas if they still have these agitations in the heart and so forth? Bhakti? Mm-hmm. Yeah. But can they do Uttama Bhakti? Never, not possible. So, Bhakti is never possible in such a contaminated heart. Therefore, the instruction is given here to subdue these passions. Which passions? The 6. Name them. Vacho, Vegam, Manasa, Jiva Vegam, Udara, Upasta Vegam. Those are the 6. What are they?
Urge to speak.
The mind's demands.
Mm-hmm.
Impetus of anger.
Mm-hmm.
Pushing of the tongue, belly, and genitals.
That's right. So he's saying here that when these contaminations, such as lust, anger, and greed, arise within the mind, then what happens? The 6 overwhelming passions that are mentioned, they cause the mind to become thoroughly engrossed in fleeting objects of sensual gratification. You have to understand this, that the mind acts in that way. when the contaminations are there of lust, anger, greed, envy, illusion, so forth, right? So when they're there, then these 6 Vega, urges, overwhelming passions, they cause the mind to become thoroughly engrossed in the fleeting objects of sensual gratification. Meaning that if we don't learn how to subdue, not only subdue, but to tolerate, if we don't learn this first verse and act on it, then it is not possible for us to get out of this network of sense gratification that we're always being engrossed in. So, and therefore, then the cultivation of unalloyed bhakti is never possible because the heart is contaminated. Therefore, the instruction is given here to subdue these passions, which impede the development of bhakti. This is how he's starting his commentary. It's a very short commentary, based upon that verse, Anyabhilashita Shunyam. Because this is all about bhakti. Upadeshamrita is only about how to attain Uttama Bhakti. And not just in the category of Uttama Bhakti, but Braja Prem, ultimately. So the sadhak who can tolerate these passions can instruct the entire world. So the conclusion is that a sadhak who has conquered his senses and subdued these passions, such a sadhak, he can purify all the jivas of the world by his resolute and pure Uttama Bhakti. Thus, everyone may become the disciple of such a great personality. That means he's Mahabhagavad. So, now the time has gone. We will complete, or there's just 2 little paragraphs if you want to. Okay. So, in Srimad Bhagavatam it is said, this is in the 11th canto, 14th chapter, 24th verse. Vag gadgada dravate yasya chittam rudatya bhikshnam hasati kvachitcha vilajja udgayati nrityatecha madbhakti yukto bhuvanam punati. So Krishna is telling to Uddhava, my dear Uddhava, my devotee whose voice becomes choked up with praying, whose heart softens and begins to flow with spiritual emotion, who cannot cease from crying even for an instant, who sometimes bursts into laughter, sometimes begins to sing very loudly, abandoning all shyness, and sometimes dances. He purifies not only himself, but the entire world. So this is the last statement in this purport. He says, it is essential to note here that by subduing the 6 passions described already, what is obtained is merely the qualification to enter the realm of bhakti. Got that? It's not that this is bhakti, to subdue those 6 passions. This is the method of obtaining the qualification to enter the realm of bhakti. These are not direct limbs of devotional practice, sadhana bhakti, but rather they are the doorway through which one may enter the realm of bhakti. Because bhakti is the self-manifest function of the Lord's internal potency. It's called Swarup Shakti. That's what bhakti is. It's the Lord's self-manifested function, Swarup Shakti. So, because bhakti is the self-manifest function of the Lord's internal potency, Swarup Shakti, when it makes its appearance, these 6 passions automatically become pacified. So this is our aim. It is not like the Gyanis. The Gyanis, they try to artificially control these urges and the senses and the mind and everything. No. The objective is bhakti. So we'll go into that more tomorrow. The next commentary is Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's. We'll read. Then the next commentary after that is Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's. very extensive commentaries. So now we've heard the first one, and we can see how beneficial the commentary is for our understanding of Sri Upadeshamrita. Gaur Premanand. Jai Shri Upadeshamritam ki jai, Shri Rupa Goswami Pada ki jai, Jai Shri Radharaman Das Goswami Pada ki jai, Shri Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki jai, Shri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki jai, Shri Prabhupada, Shri Gurudev ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanande.